Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, I said we would work on server-side push notifications, or we're using Cloud Code. But the more I thought about it, I really want this course to be focused more on the Android side of things, how Android and Parse interact. Cloud Code, it's cool, but in this case, I don't think we really need it that much. If you are curious, Parse has a really great guide. You can just click this Get Started with Cloud Code button, and then it'll kind of just walk you through everything. It's really simple to use, and if you know JavaScript or have used JavaScript in the past, then you'll be able to pick it up really quickly. But for now, I think we're just going to ignore it. The final thing I want to do in this course is I want to kind of perfect everything we have going on here. I want to make the code look a lot better, and I want to add in some user improvement functionalities. In particular, I want to add in some progress spinners so that users so that users kind of know what's going on, and so that they aren't just continually clicking the take photo button like we did repeatedly, or at least like I did repeatedly, which wasn't such a great thing to do. So the first things we're going to do is we're going to extract some of these methods into utility classes. So in particular, I want to move the stuff that's related to fetching friends into a different class. It really doesn't belong inside of our activity class. I think it makes sense to put it inside of the parse user class. Or no, not a parse user class, sorry. Let's just create a utility method, and we'll call it Facebook utils. We'll call it Facebook utils. And in here, we are just going to make this method public and static. Now, we also need to grab this interface that we have down here, this friends listener interface, and we are going to make it public, right? So now let's see here. So once we do that, we have this method right here. Let's make it static. So then once we have that, we have this fetch friends for IDs. And I think that this is fine. I think we actually want to, I think this is as far as we want to go. We just want the IDs. So this friends listener, in our case, is friends ready listener. It's just going to return an ID, or a list of IDs, string IDs. So then what we can do is we can just do listener on friends ready, and we can just do IDs. Okay, great. Now what we're going to do here is we're just going to do Facebook utils dot fetch friends, new friends ready listener. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call fetch friend for ID, IDs, and then let's see here, we need another friends ready listener. Okay, so this doesn't actually make our code much cleaner. So what we're going to do is I want to keep the Facebook stuff and the parse stuff kind of separate, right? So the way I'm going to do this now is I'm just going to do parse Facebook utils. And inside of this method, what we're going to do is we're going to plop this fetch friends for ID method that we have right here. And we're going to make this method static. And then we need another interface. But let's call this interface something a little more descriptive. So we'll call this parse friends ready listener. And then, so on friends ready, and then this is going to return a list of parse user friends. Okay. So then we're just going to copy this link right here, refactor this code really easily, and then we're good. Okay, so what we're going to do is once we fetch the friends, we're going to do parse Facebook utils dot fetch friends for IDs, and then we're going to do new parse friends ready listener. So then we can do this. So now this still isn't so great because we have two nested callbacks, which kind of sucks. So the way we could do this is we can use the task functionality built into Parse's Parse's bolts framework. So the task functionality, if you've ever used kind of maybe like JavaScript closures or something like that, right? You'll know that it, or even anonymous inner classes, you'll know that you get kind of what's called triangular code. Or sorry, not triangular, but like pyramid-like code. Notice how this kind of just keeps going up in a pyramid, and it's just not the best. What you want is you want code that looks kind of like a ladder. So it just keeps going down, down, and down, and down. But it doesn't make this kind of pyramidal shape, which it's just not a great thing to have. And you can kind of get around this by using methods. So if we extracted this into a method, right, it wouldn't look so bad. And if we extracted this into another method, it wouldn't look so bad. But there's another way to do this, and that's by using what are called tasks. So the way they work, let me see if I can remember it off the top of my head. But we want to basically create a task completion source, and then okay, so the syntax is really strange here. So in this case, what we're actually returning is we're returning a list of parse users, right? But let's go to this Facebook utils class. In this case, what are we returning? We are returning a list of, or an array of string IDs. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to do, let's see here, we're going to do task, and the result is going to be string dot, so I think we can do that, dot, let's see here, dot create, or maybe dot, yeah, we want to do dot create, I believe, so it doesn't quite work. Okay, so let me read it. We want a task completion source, and I need to give this task a name, so we're going to call this fetch friends task, and then we're going to just create it like that, I believe. I think this should work. Then we need to do is equal to task.create. Yeah, that's really, really strange syntax, but this is how it works. Anyways, so what happens is we create this task, right? Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to return it. So we're going to return this task. And then I believe what we do is we do return fetch friends task.get task. So we're going to return this task, and this task is just simply kind of like this wrapper. It's just an object that really doesn't do anything, right? We're going to return it, and what we're going to do is we are going to, when the IDs are ready, what we're going to do is we're going to call a method. We're going to call setResult, and we're going to just pass it in like this. So then we're going to get rid of this listener. So how does this work, you may be wondering? So you can think about it as kind of wrapping this listener functionality that we already had going on, right? So imagine that we have kind of a queue of these tasks, or a list of these tasks, right? So one task happens, and that task, it fetches some data asynchronously. And then another task happens, and that other task fetches some data asynchronously, right? Now what you want to have happen is you want to do something when both of those tasks finish, or when both of those things finish fetching the data, right? You want to maybe update the UI or something. So how could you do that? Well, you could basically fire up two asynchronous requests, and then inside each of these callbacks, you could fire up, the other asynchronous request, and then you would know, because you had done, you were basically calling them linearly, you would know when the second task or the second thing had finished, and then you could do whatever you wanted. So that's kind of what we're doing right here. What we're doing is we're creating these tasks, and what we're saying is, just create this task and don't worry about it. Just don't do anything until we call the setResult method. When we call the setResult method, then move on to the next task. Okay? So to make that a little more clear, let us go here. So I'm going to comment out all of this code right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do Facebook utils.fetchFriends. Now notice we don't actually pass in an anonymous inner class anymore. What we're doing now is we're actually returning a task. So we're returning a task, and we can do some things on this method. So on this task. So we can do, for example, this continuation, or we can do continue with. We can call this method called continue with, and what this continue method does, it's pretty clever. What it does is, in this case, hold on, let me just work out this annoying kind of syntax. So what it does is it fetches the friends, right? So this method is just going to return a task. Now, what happens is when we call the setResult method, then it's going to move into the stuff inside of this anonymous inner class. So we have an anonymous inner class, right? So the task knows that it has to do something after it finishes. But what does it have to do? Well, it does whatever is defined inside of this this method right here. Okay, so once we fetch the friends, we're going to have a list of let's say we're going to have a list of tasks, right? Or sorry, we're going to have a bunch of strings. And so what we are going to do is, now that we have the strings, right, we actually want to fetch the friends, right? So let us make this a task also.